Welcome back to another Film Geek movie review. In just a bit, I am headed out the door to go check out the new body horror film, The Evil Stepsister. The Evil Stepsister tells the story of Elvira, the ugly stepsister. She is trying to compete with her beautiful sister for the heart of the prince. And guys, this movie looks like it is gonna go freaking hard. This movie comes to us all the way from Hungary, and come to think of it, I think this might be the first time I've seen a Hungarian film. And I am gonna go see the subtitled version of the movie, which I'm happy about. I do like the fact that I'm seeing the original actors using their own voices. It always makes it easier on me to be able to judge the acting in a film when I go see a movie that's been subtitled, because I get to hear the voices of the original actors, their cadence, their emotional oomph that they put into delivering their lines and all. And I think honestly, in some regards, that's more important than actually understanding the language itself. So you know what? It's enough of me sitting here jibber-jabbering on. It is time for me to get out the door and check out The Ugly Stepsister. Back, just getting home from The Ugly Stepsister, and guys, this movie is a freaking trip. Now, before I get things started, I just want to clear some stuff up real quick. In my intro, I made a mistake. I thought this movie was from Hungary. I was way off. This film is from Norway. Well, at least it's in Norwegian, is what I figured in this film. And I do believe it takes place in Sweden, but it's also filmed in Denmark and Sweden. So Denmark, Sweden, Poland, and Norway. Yes, so I was way off with the Hungary, alright? Now, this is something else I didn't bring up in the intro because I wasn't 100% sure going into it. This film is a reimagining of the fairy tale Cinderella, but it focuses mostly, or I shouldn't say mostly, it completely focuses on the ugly stepsister. In this movie, her name is Elvira, and I don't remember what Cinderella's stepsisters were named in either the Disney movie or the fairy tale itself. So Elvira is the ugly stepsister in this movie, and yes, it does follow along with the Cinderella story. Now, I know that there's been these movies lately, the unlicensed character universe that's been going on. I know there's been Steamboat Willie, Popeye, and then I've covered the movies that are in the Pooverse. And let me tell you guys, all of those movies, well, I can't speak for some of them because I haven't seen like the Steamboat Willie or the Popeye, but most of these movies are fairly lighthearted slashers that go for more of a goofy film. This movie is downright horrifying. This film does try to scare you, gross you out, make your stomach churn. I mean, this is a body horror film with an extremely solid and good message. So let's get into it, shall we? Now, I don't really have negatives, but I am going to say there's some mixed feelings that I have with this movie. Now, I can't really go into it because it is a plot point, but it does have to do with the myth of Cinderella. They use a scene from the Cinderella story, and I just didn't feel like it needed to be part of this movie because I thought it took away from the ugly stepsister Elvira by doing this, and it was also something that really didn't need to be done. It ties in some more supernatural elements into the film, and by this point in the movie, there really hasn't been anything supernatural. Most things have been dealt with mostly with, I guess, science of the time and all. So it goes into a scene with some supernatural elements for no good reason, and it really made me feel like maybe the character themselves were going crazy or something. You'll have to see the scene for yourself for you to understand what I'm talking about, because again, I don't want to give any spoilers away. But for me, I just didn't feel like it worked. But my wife, charming Amy, she thought it was perfectly fine. So maybe it's a me thing and everybody else will think it's just fine. That being said, I don't really have a lot other than that one moment where they try to go into a supernatural area when the film itself hasn't really gone in there. Yes, there's some dream sequences and all, but they really tried to stay within the realm of reality, and so that's why it kind of took me out of the moment for a little bit. But other than that, no problems. I will give you a warning though that this movie is downright brutally, graphically gory. Now, going into this film, to be perfectly honest, I thought this movie was going to be a lot gorier, but I also thought it was going to be a little bit more cartoony with the gore. This movie goes for just downright amazingly brutal looking practical effects, and I will get into the positives on just, shining them with all the goodness that they deserve. But let me tell you folks, it is brutal. Now, there's not near as much gore and near as much body horror as I thought there was going to be, but let me tell you folks, the stuff that's there, it's pretty freaking horrifying. So let's move into the downright positives. As I said, this is one of those unlicensed character movies, but it's nothing like the other movies that have come out so far before it, because this movie definitely goes hard. This is not just trying to be a reimagining of Cinderella as a slasher. This is a reimagining of the Cinderella story told from the perspective of the ugly stepsister, and also it ties in a lot of other things that women deal with when it comes to their appearance and how their beauty is perceived by the people in the world, and how women are pushed towards these beauty standards, and how some of them put their lives in their bodies and lives on the line just to look a certain way. And the things that they chose in this movie, now I am not 100% certain if these medical procedures did exist during the time period of this movie. They sure seemed like they did. They did a good job making it look like these surgical procedures were things that existed back then, but they are things that exist in today's world. So I thought that it took this something that was familiar to us, put it in a different time period, and it also really helped translate what was going on the screen. So the message of this story, while it is very prevalent and it does not necessarily pussyfoot around what they're trying to say with this, it still doesn't really seem like it's coming off as heavy-handed, because we know what the story of Cinderella is. It's the fairest of the ball, for goodness sakes, and that's exactly what this movie drives home. And it does end in a very good, it has a great slow burn, build up ending. I don't necessarily feel like this movie was what would be considered a slow burn. I do think that some folks will label it that way, but in all honesty, I felt like this was more of what I would call a dramatic horror film. It didn't necessarily have a lot of action and all, but it also had some excellent, intense acting that really, really kept you interested in the story and just kept you wondering what was going to happen next. One of the other things about this film that was great is that they don't necessarily make Cinderella into a jerk. I thought for sure that was something that they were going to do with the movie, because that's kind of how these satires go, in the main story, she's always looked upon as this perfect being, this wonderful, kind creature that every living creature loves, and they make her dresses and they sing songs about her and so on. So you kind of think that they would make that character very mean and brutal and all, but they didn't. It was almost like her story was happening at the same time as the Ugly Stepsister, and sometimes those stories crossed over, and I really liked the way they did that. All in all, guys, I would have to say that this was a very solid, good, psychological horror film with some very intense, graphic special effects. The practical effects in this movie are downright horrifying, realistic, solid, and will make your stomach churn. If you are someone that cannot take, well, I'm just going to say it. If you cannot take something that has to do with eyes, you're going to have a really tough time in one of the scenes in this. It really makes you squirm in your seat, and those effects look amazing. And the way that these scenes are filmed also, you can almost feel the bone breaking and all of the needles that are going into the skin. Guys, all I have to say is that this is an extremely effective, well-made horror film that does its job, gets in there, gets the story told, and scares you, horrifies you, and grosses you out in the process. This film is a Shudder original. I didn't know that going into it, so this movie's going to probably show up on Shudder here next month. couple of months or so, so keep your eyes open. If this film is not in your area, because in my opinion, this is a solid get out there and see it in theaters horror movie, because just those special effects and the way some of this stuff is shot, believe me, you owe it to yourself to see it on the big screen so you can just take in all of that horrific, amazingly done practical effect gore. Well, okay guys, that's all I have for you today. Thanks again for checking out the Film Geek. If you liked what you saw here today, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, ring that bell for notifications, and give me the old thumbs up so I know you like what you're seeing. And if there's one more thing you can do, folks, that is keep watching movies. You know I'm gonna.